Okay, we're live.
Here we go.
Oh. Let's see, Gene.
I don't see the city clerk on my screen.
That's because we got a public speaker.
Yeah, but we need to move the public speaker, but the city clerk up there.
We need to see her, do we?
I don't
We need to see the.
You need to slide over. She's on the next page.
There's the mayor. Okay, but we're gonna have to get that public speaker up here on the first screen.
Okay, we're ready.
Are we ready, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, we are.
All right. We're now in your hands.
This is the regular meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, May 12th. Please stand for our invocations, led by Mayor William Stimson, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We come to you humbly this morning with grateful hearts for the opportunities that we have to represent this city. Lord, we come praising you, thanking you. Lord, we also confess that we've fallen short of who you've wanted us to be, to doing the things that you want us to do and how we've treated our fellow man. And Lord, we just ask for forgiveness for this as we go forward at this point in time. Lord, we also just pray for divine intervention into this COVID crisis for our city, our state, and our nation. And Lord, we also would ask that you would impart into each one of us the ability to be noble stewards of the gifts, the resources, the responsibilities that's entrusted to each one of us. Lord, we just thank you again for this opportunity to gather and do the business of this city, and pray that your face would continue to shine upon us, that you would strengthen our hand and lead us along the path of righteousness for your name's sake. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
Roll call. President Manzi,
Here.
Vice President Small, Vice President Small.
His microphone is off.
Okay.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember Williams,
here.
Councilmember Days,
Here.
Councilmember Rich,
here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Statement of rules.
Good morning.
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 In response to national, state, and local guidance due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Alabama Open Meetings Act and the Governor's Supplemental Emergency Proclamation, we are meeting remotely. While we are all in different places, we are able to participate as if we were all in the council chambers at City Hall. And in keeping with the requirements of the Alabama Open Meetings Act, the public is still able to observe the meeting through the live stream. All items we will address during this meeting are either necessary to respond to COVID-19 or necessary to perform essential minimum functions of the city. The public is still able to present comments to the council by emailing them to cityclerk at cityofmobile.org up to 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Public comments, which will be acknowledged as received during the meeting, distributed to council members, and included in the meeting minutes. As always, the meeting is live streamed and can be viewed through the city's website or on the council's Facebook page. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your continued interest in your municipal government.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davis?
if we could just urge everybody, remind everybody, if they're not speaking, to mute. There's a lot of ambient noise going on out there, and it makes it more difficult to hear the person who is speaking. Thank you very much. Like that noise right.
That's a great point, Mr. Davis. If everybody could, if you're not speaking, put it on mute so that we don't have the ambient noises. We want to be wary of the ambient noises. Back in your hands, Madam City Clerk.
Approval of minutes of May 5th.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Great job as always. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved.
Communications from the mayor.
Good morning.
Good
We
morning.
have another Zoom meeting. I know that you'll be as glad as I am when we feel safe enough to no longer have Zoom meetings, but I think it's been remarkable, the work of the city that's continued over the past several weeks. Now, I would address first reopening of Government Plaza and kind of what the timeline is. And we discussed it earlier, but probably about 2 weeks from now, we could start the process of bringing back city employees. We have out of this building about 200 that are presently teleworking. And we will bring them back kind of as in a phased approach, making sure that we can do the social distancing, making sure that the public is protected from our employees and our employees are protected from the public interfacing. I will point out though, there's been 8 weeks and we really haven't had the public in this building, and we haven't missed a lick when it comes to Bill Mobile, things that people used to come down here for accounting, coming down for revenue, all of that has continued. So thinking forward, it may be that the most important meetings in the future are going to be the pre-development meetings, some bid openings, but really we've done remarkably well to run as a city with this, all the UDC requirements. Anyway, so not UDC, anyway, you know what I mean. Anyway, so another topic I'd like to address is the interest that we've had in Ignite Mobile. And it's been pretty remarkable. We've had 346 applicants. At this point in time, we have processed 182, or we're in the process of actually completing that. We're hoping that, subject to your vote today, that we could actually spend some time pushing the button to get checks delivered or electronic funds transferred. On another note, I was made aware that during the month of April, the trash pickup in the city of Mobile was 56% higher than what it was in April of this year. That's amazing. Now, there've been a couple of days that we ran a little bit behind, but by and large, we've been right on top of all the garbage and trash collection, which is a testament to the men and women that are working there. So those would cover my remarks at this time, Mr. President. So we'll be on standby.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
President,
Mr.
Mr.
Richardson.
President, I would like to ask
Mr. Richardson.
the mayor whether or not, yes, I would like to ask
I
the
was
mayor
just
whether or not
acknowledging.
he
I'm
is
sorry.
aware. Okay, I'm trying it again. I would like to ask the mayor whether or not he knows when, if or when Government Plaza will be open to the public.
It'll be at least 2 weeks.
Mayor?
Can you hear me now?
I hear
Yeah,
now.
it would be at least 2 weeks from our previous discussion before we would start bringing anyone back in. And then it would go on for a period of another 3 weeks after the first one comes in.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. Vice President?
yeah, I'd like to ask him a question. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. We're bringing the employees back into Governor Plaza, and just for the public concerns, are they going to be tested by, coronavirus tests, or such as, getting the temperature, tested to see if they have a temperature or anything in that nature? Because I know that some corporate places are checking the temperature of their employees and just trying to see, if the city plan on doing anything like that to calm the public concerns.
As far as general testing, when it comes to like an antibody test or the PCR test, there's no plans at this point in time to do those tests. And I think we'll have to work in conjunction with the county because of the screening that they do with their security guards about whether we would prefer for them to do the temperature testing. There's been so few people coming in Government Plaza lately. I haven't seen them doing the temperature checks, but I heard that they did have the thermometers, but we still have a couple of weeks to engage with them to figure out the best way to do that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President.
Ms. Gregory?
Yeah, Mayor, you mentioned earlier during our pre-conference meeting, as we are preparing to bring our employees back, what you all are planning to do as far as our employees wearing masks, especially those employees who interface with the public. If you could go over that again.
Yeah, so we do have the proper PPE for those employees that will be interfacing with the public. And we're right now counting on the department heads to develop kind of the procedures or their recommendations on which employees should be wearing the mask because of interfacing with the public. So within the next week, we should have all that information compiled.
Okay. And Mr. President, while we are talking about employees returning to Government Plaza, we should go ahead and let everybody know when the council intends to return to Government Plaza.
I believe that date is Madam City Clerk, isn't that date the 26th?
Yes, May 26th.
May the 26th.
Just to make sure everybody knows.
It's the date that we have reached consensus on. And I'm hopeful between now and the 26th that we would have made steady improvements and some flattening of the curve would have occurred. But as employees come back to Government Plaza, I guess the expectation would be that we would as well. But we want to do all of that as safely and as organized as possible.
Correct.
Any other, we've had a couple of questions of Mayor Stimson. Any more, since we're kind of taking time to do that? Any other questions for Mayor Stimson? All right, Madam City Clerk.
Adoption of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
Mr. Daves?
I move that we take up public hearings immediately following the adoption of the agenda and before essential COVID item is held over.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Public
Yes, ma'am.
hearings. Okay, public hearings. Today is the public hearing for determination of the formation of the Mobile Tourism District. And we have David Clark.
Can we get David on the first
Oh,
screen?
hold on, just a minute.
Maybe take out the mayor's conference room?
Should be on.
Is there anyone among us that's against it? If not, we can tell David, we already experiencing difficulties.
Hear me? This is David Clark. Good morning,
Good morning.
Hey there.
Mr. President, City Council, and the Mayor's Administration. It's a tremendous day in Mobile, and we've been working a long time on the Mobile Tourism Improvement District, and Visit Mobile has been collaborating with y'all and our Merit Mobile Area Lodging Corporation. And today with us, we have Spike Blackington, who's president of the Mobile Area Lodging Association and one of the four founders of the corporation, along with Margot Gilbert. And I thought I would turn it over to them and to briefly address y'all if I could.
Hey, can we get
Yes, sir.
their picture? I mean, this is kind of important. Can we get their photograph at all?
Can they
Part
get
of
the
public
photograph?
hearing
Trying to start the video, it won't start. So, John Strope, you'll need to start your video. There it is.
There we go. There we go.
Perfect.
You can see, okay. All right, great. I'm going to turn it over to Spike Blackington if I could. Thank you.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Here to ask for your support on the adoption of the Mobile Tourism Improvement District. As you all know, we've worked together individually for many years, 5 or 6 or even 7. And we've been to this spot one other time before where we've received all the petitions from the hotels that are required to move this forward. So we are here again today. This is a monumental task we've taken on and really an innovative project for our city. In order to get this done, you have to have support of not only the Mobile Area Lodging Association, which I'm the president of, it's the hotel community in the entire city of Mobile. There are many hotels that signed this petition that are not members of the Lodging Association. I want to make that clear because it's not just a Lodging Association initiative. We are required to get 60% of all the hotel room count within the city and 50% of the actual properties within the city to sign the petition. We've exceeded those thresholds. And actually, we've exceeded them more than we did the first time we got the petition. So we still have great support within the community, great collaboration. And even over the last 2 years when we had to go to Montgomery and get the state law changed to make this happen, we had great collaboration with our local state representatives, our industry, both in the city and even in the state, and everybody's support. We got that done fairly smoothly to be in Montgomery during legislation last year. So we have 42 hotels that have signed the petition, yes. There's a total of 66 hotels within the city of Mobile, and we've had 4 hotels sign no. Everybody in the state is watching us to see what we do and be the first to innovate in this information. And I really believe that's it. I'm just asking for support. And over the years, we know we've collaborated individually with everyone and appreciate your support. I'm going to hand it over to Margot just for a few more comments. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions of our speaker? Any questions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Ms. Gregory?
Hey, Skip, good morning.
Morning.
You mentioned 4 of the hotels signed no on your petition. Did they sign no recently or was that earlier on?
We had to re-petition everybody twice. So it was on the most recent petition. From a time perspective, I would say it was within the last 6 months. It was not anything recent from the initial petition drive that we started about 6 months ago. And two of those no's are from the same management group. So it's really 3 individuals that said no. Does that answer your question?
Yes, probably. Just to follow up though, if I might, with tourism numbers being down because of the pandemic, how is that going to affect the TIF and what you all are trying to accomplish? I mean, and how do you make it all work the way we had it obviously intended?
We obviously won't be bringing in as much money in the beginning and have anything in our coffers to use immediately. It doesn't change it. It's just the volume of room night city that will be down until recovery. It doesn't change our plan, doesn't change our projection, doesn't change the vision. It may take a little bit more time to get there as we collect money and build up that fund.
I have a question, if I may, of the
Yes,
speaker.
Councilor Gregory, Rich.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for all your hard work on this. I have a question about the board of, I guess it's a board of directors that will oversee the allocations. And can you just give us a little bit of an indication of how that's made up and how you decide on your expenditure of those funds that hopefully will be coming to you should this be approved? Thank you.
One of the things that made this easier for people to get behind on the hoteliers is the hoteliers make up the board. We decide where the money is spent. The board is made up of hoteliers from across the city based on region. So we'll have 2 hoteliers from the Tillman's Corner area, 2 from the Beltline area, 2 from the downtown area. We'll have a restaurant association member, an attractions association member, myself as the president of MALA, if I continue to be the president of the Lodging Association. And then there are 3 ex officio members that do not vote, but are on the board. 1 from the city of Mobile, 1 from Visit Mobile. Is there another one? Just two. I'm sorry. So that's how the board's made up. So really it's made up, the bulk of it is made by hoteliers, a restaurant, and an attractions member. So it's really our hospitality and our tourism team that forms the board, makes the board, and decides how that money is spent.
And how is that board formulated? Are people elected to it to represent those regions, or
Correct.
are people selected?
Now, every hotel that is a part of this, which will be every hotel in Mobile, will vote those members in. So every hotel that gets assessed a tourism and district fee has a vote to vote in those members. So it's not a selection, it's a vote.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?
Any other questions of Skip? Mr. Williams?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay. I thought
Appreciate your time on this, Mike. I appreciate it. Really great.
Welcome. I'm going to hand it over to Margo. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Good to see you. So again, we're asking for your support for the TID. And what I really want to mention is the current state of the travel industry right now is actually, obviously we all know what's going on, but with the TID in place, this helps us as a hotel community market ourselves and get in front of the situation. So when we put the plan into place, we talked about marketing, capital improvement, things of that nature. There's also a part of that that talks about how to recover from a natural disaster. And when we put this together, I think what we all had in mind is a hurricane, a recession, a depression, but now we're in a pandemic. The current state of the travel industry, now more than ever, our focus needs to be instilling confidence and trust in customers to come to Mobile and make Mobile the most ideal place to come and visit. Overnight travel. As the travel industry begins their marathon of recovery, it's crucial for Mobile to be in a sprint to get in front of this, in front of customers, and market ourselves and increase the occupancy within Mobile. That's all I have. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Thanks, Margo.
Any questions for Ms. Margo? Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Madam City Clerk?
We need to end the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. We did receive correspondence in support from Elizabeth Stevens. And we'll have that entered into the record.
Good.
Thank you. Any further commentary for this particular public hearing? If not, public hearing is closed.
Today is a public hearing to consider approval of a special emergency grant program known as Ignite Mobile.
Is there anyone here, anyone present that would like to
Has
participate?
signed in. No one has signed in to speak about that.
Thank you, Madam Assistant City Clerk. Absent anyone being signed in, the public hearing on this particular item is closed.
Okay. That concludes the public hearings. Essential COVID-19 items held over. 34012, ordinance to amend the city's business license code to exempt persons offering parking space on private property within a 1 mile radius of Lad Peoples Stadium from obtaining a business license.
Move to hold over 1 week.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is held over 1 week.
If there are no objections, I'll take the next ones together, all together. 08326, 327, approving purchase orders to CDW Government for Foundation Care Software and support for Aruba Switch hardware, and approving purchase orders to Taylor Power Systems for 2 generators for Public Works. 09328, approved transfer of funds to grant account for sidewalks along O'Shell Road from Parkway Drive to University Boulevard. 21329, authorized contract with Corporate Environmental Risk Management to perform professional engineering services for Little Flower Avenue roadway repairs. 21330, authorized contract with Mott McDonald Alabama LLC to perform professional engineering services for concrete roadway improvements. 31332, authorized contract with E. Cornell Malone Corporation for Gulf Coast Explorium Roofing. 21333, authorized contract with McCrory and Williams for O'Shell Road sidewalks from Parkway Drive West to University Boulevard. 21334, authorized contract with McCrory and Williams for O'Shell Road sidewalks from Myrtlewood Drive to I-65 Service Road West. 35336, recommend the lease of city-owned property at 720 Museum Drive. 37337, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer, table wine, off-premises only license for Lucky 99 on Somerville Street. 58338 and 339 are assessing costs for removal of weeds, Weedling Group 1600, and adding Figures Lawn Care and Landscaping to the list of private contractors to abate properties declared public nuisances. 60340, determine an appropriation to the Mobile Regional Senior Community Center Foundation serves a public purpose and approve payments.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Essential COVID items being introduced for the first time, 17013 through 60353.
Mr. President, I move that those items be designated as essential COVID-19 items.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Essential COVID-19 items, 17013 through 6353.
Make a motion for immediate consideration of resolution 60353. The remainder will be laid over for 1 week by council rule.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
60353, resolution to authorize and approve an emergency grant program for small businesses in response to COVID-19.
Aye. Oh, I've so moved.
Second.
Second,
I thought we were going to have the hearing.
Oh, yeah.
we did.
Are we
We
doing?
did.
We
Oh, that's
did.
right. Nobody showed up. Excuse me. Nobody was
came.
interested. I
That's
guess
right.
maybe the 346 would have been interested. Never mind.
So we've had the motion and there's a second. Any discussion?
I do. I have a question towards the administration.
Mr. Vice President?
President, the question I have, maybe interesting, is there an expiration date, to this grant, and if so, when is it?
Somebody needs to cut their phone off. I think it's you, Joe.
West.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hear you now.
Yes. At this time, we have closed the application process.
It
So
is
it's-
closed.
Really?
So no one's not able to apply for this after, right now?
As of right now, that's correct. We have closed the process. We did let the public know that the process would be closed on Friday. We did not receive any applications after, between the time that we sent the notice out and it actually closed on 6 p.m.
Okay.
What day was that closed?
On Friday.
Yeah. I mean,
All right.
yeah.
President,
But
Yeah.
we're gonna hear from Mr. Small has.
yeah, he's in
spoke
there.
comment there, and then we'll come right to you, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I have some issues with that because basically the council has not approved, the money yet, and we opened up the process. And many people might have just said, we just gonna see if the council's gonna approve it right before we waste our time and fill out this application. Now, the council has not approved it before us right now to approve it, but we opened up the application process and closed it. And I have some issues with that, especially if people just didn't have faith in the government, especially if they did not get the unemployment or they didn't get the PPP or et cetera. I mean, this is just like, we open up for a certain time, we let our good friends know before it just basically be advertised to the public after the council has approved it. But we seem like we open up this process before the council approved the money, and we close the process, and the council approved it, then we're going to award. I have some issues with that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Williams?
I thank you very much. I think that there is room for discussion on what we might put into this emergency grant program as a council, and that is that we put in a deadline of July 4th, maybe, just throwing a great remembering day or easy day to remember out there, so that we eliminate this condition of what may appear as an open and closed case. That'll also give us some time to receive from the administration the list of people who were not approved and why. Because I think that is a very, very important piece and feeds right into what Mr. Small was talking about. So on those two pieces, I would make an amendment that adds, and Chris can help me, the 4th of July as a deadline for application, and add a requirement that the administration provide the council with all that are approved and disapproved, and in the case of disapproved, why.
John, can you say when we want that information? Because he may hold up until the 4th of July. So when would we want that information?
I would say that it be granted to the council on a weekly basis, consolidated and sent to the council on a weekly basis.
I have a if I could weigh in on this. And this is probably to Chris, if he can hear me, Chris.
Yeah, I can hear
The
you.
advertising period was when they closed out, because we started advertising on the Friday, and then it had 7 days of advertising. And so they met that benchmark. Would it be wiser to say that the applications could come in as long as there were still funds available? See, I don't know what those 186 were allocated. So just doing some math, we could possibly already have gone through the funding source. And I think that's where the line should be as far as how long this continues, as long as there are funds, and then say that that's the date that it stops. And maybe that's somewhere we could get more information from the administration on that, instead of putting another date out there if there are no funds available. So that, and if the administration could give us an idea, they say they're ready to go with those checks out the door, they must have a sense of how much, because what it was different amounts depending on where you were in that application form as far as number of employees. So if we could get some understanding of how close they are to maxing out on the amount of money at this point.
Councilwoman Rich, that is correct. Not here.
Go ahead, Mr. West. I was.
No, what Ms. Rich said was absolutely correct. We have, received enough applications to go through the 500,000. However, as we have been fine-tuning our process, inquiring of applicants for additional information where something was left out, we don't have a really good read on how close we are. If we had to guess, it would probably be in the $400,000 range or so. What we would like to do is, when we have completed the process of coming up with the number of compliant applications and the money that corresponds to those, is to open up the process again should we have additional funds left. We think there will be some. We're not absolutely sure as we speak today.
Mr. President.
Mr. Richardson.
I would like for John to add to his motion, so long as there are funds available. Let's go with that.
So we have a motion. Was there a second? The motion, John is amending this particular item. He offered a motion to amend. Is there a second to that motion?
And that's just to put in that statement, not a date certain. Correct? Do I have that correct on your amendment?
You're on mute, John.
That would be fine with me, so long as this process is not closed. Because if I were a citizen and I was listening to this meeting and I heard it's already closed, really? I didn't know it was going to close. Going with Mr. Small's comments, I would feel like there's something shady going on. And I'm not saying there is. I would say what I would feel if I was a citizen that qualified and chose not to make an immediate application for that program.
Okay, so you're talking to amend your motion that when the 500,000 is expended, then the program is collapsed and over. And are you saying that people can still apply? And that
Yes.
would be the administration, because they have 346 to go through. Have they gone through all those applications? It's just that the 7-day advertising was very important, and we did let that go. It was released to the media on the city's website, so people did know about that. And I don't have any problem with the 500,000. I mean, if the administration wants to do a whole nother program because there's all these people out there that qualify and the 500 wasn't enough, that would be a whole second round of advertising because again, it's serving a public purpose is what we have to prove. And that takes that 772 in an advertising form. So
I don't
I don't have any problem with going up
Ian.
to the amount of money being expended.
That's what
Just
John
no-
is saying.
Okay,
Mr.
I just wanted to make sure that he mentioned July 4th, so I didn't want to see necessarily two things, into the amendment, a date plus amount of money, because that would be very confusing to people.
Mr. President,
Mr. Daves?
I have some, one or two questions for Mr. Wesh. Mr. Wesh, my recollection is that there has been a lot of publicity about this program and that interested parties were directed to go to the city's website where they could find information on the program, the rules related to the program, and file an application. Is that correct?
Mr. Davis, that's true. In addition, as you may recall, every business license holder was contacted directly.
And did all of this information and the contact that was provided to the license holders indicate that there was a deadline for an application?
It did.
Oh, did it?
I don't.
I'd have to question that. Did they? Was that on the application? I didn't remember that. And I may be completely wrong. I'm asking a question.
It was not on the application. When we sent the information to our business license holders that were in the high risk and close contact, we sent that information of the date that the application was open and the date that the application was closed.
But you're using some different words. Hold on, if I may, Mr. President, there's some different words going out now. We were going to send these to everybody that was closed by government order. There was no further definition of that population at that time. So did we narrow it?
No,
afterwards?
we didn't. Let me explain something. If Mr. President, if I may. So here's what's happening. I think people are conflating different things. So no, the application didn't have that information on it. Yes, the information did go out to the business license holders. But listen to this. If you were a person that was closely held or higher risk and you didn't have a business license, then you didn't get the communication because you probably weren't eligible under our parameters. So that's what we're saying. You didn't get that communication. So remember, one of the big purposes of this is to be able to keep the economy circulating. And one of the public purposes aspects that we talked about publicly is that you have to be a business license holder who's paying into the city so that we keep those businesses online. That's one of the ways that we verify. So you asked a good question, but I didn't want to cross stream the two, the application versus communication.
Yeah, and Mr. President, I just want to, it appears to me from what I've heard that that all these businesses were notified, excuse me, by the city, that the notification included the deadline date. And if they chose to sit on their rights and let the deadline date pass, I don't think we need to go back and open up the process again, because then that's unfair. That's unfair to the other people.
Why?
Right.
Why they all? Why would
How would that be unfair, Joe
Well,
Davis?
Well, I think it's unfair to the people who acted responsibly and acted immediately to move ahead with their application, and then we find, oh well, we didn't really mean that deadline. We really don't have a deadline. We're just changing the rules.
Mr. President.
Arbitrarily.
I think Mr. Williams, no, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, Mr. President, and I have a question because last Tuesday, I thought I was aware that some of the communication out by snail mail. So if the snail mail was put in on last Tuesday, they probably did not get it till Wednesday, Thursday. And if they even get it to Wednesday, Thursday, and the cutoff date was Friday, I mean, to me, it's not a fair process. And if I'm wrong, correct me, but then some of the information, or then we reach some of these business owners by snail mail?
Mr. Vice President, you're right. We had anticipated that we might. However, 100% of the business license holders had email addresses. So there was no need for any snail mail.
So all the business licenses don't have email addresses, do they?
Yes.
Ms. Stimson would like to weigh in. Ms. Stimson?
Yep, setting the framework for this program, we didn't have a real good handle on how many people may apply, how much they would be eligible for, and how quickly the $500,000 may be used up. So that had something to do with setting the length of the time for accepting applications. 1 week from today, we will have to you a list of everybody that's received money. We'll have a list of all those that have not received money. You'll have an idea, a very close idea of how much money is left in the account. I don't think anybody's comments here are wrong today, but I think that instead of making a firm decision today, that we can make a more informed decision next Tuesday and move forward with the amount of remaining money and what we're going to do to maybe open the process back up. And we're willing to do all of that. So I think that we'll be better opportunity next week if you're willing to wait to then.
Mr. President?
Mr. Williams?
And I want to first of all address the unfair portion. No one is going to be left without a check. I say when we pass this thing today, checks start being issued. No unfair. The first people got the first checks.
Right.
With money left over, and there is still application to be, I see no reason to close the program. And I also don't see a need to re-advertise, and Chris may disagree with me, or maybe not, that this program can be refunded or funded again under the same rules, so that all those who were closed down by the government can have, and did not get unemployment and did not get PPP, can receive a small boost from the taxes they paid in to municipal government.
It wasn't all business.
I concur with Mr. Williams. I don't see those who are already in the hopper and those who are already ready to be processed can be processed. The application can stay live. We won't know if there's a pent up demand unless the application is there. There may be we don't know how long this process is going to last. What the governor's next order might entail. And in light of that, it may be that we need to allocate more resources to the initiative, but we won't know that if we don't have a live application.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris.
That's Chris.
Okay, yes, sir.
Under the current funding amount, we don't have to re-advertise. If more money gets added to it, I think you probably would. But I wanted to be clear what the amendment motion is, and I wrote down, and somebody tell me if this is right or wrong, that the application process be reopened until July 4th or so long as there are funds available. That's to part one. And part two, that the administration would provide council with a list of the approved and disapproved applicants weekly. Is that a correct statement?
Mr. Williams?
Just 1 second. Let me go with the easier addition first, and that is that why those that were disapproved. Just a very short explanation. But going back to the other one, we had a short discussion, and Mr. Rich wanted to avoid this, the possibility of confusion. And I think we probably ought to take the 4th of July out and just say, so long as there are funds available for the program.
Okay, so application process reopened so long as there are funds available, and then get a list of the approved, disapproved, and why, if they were disapproved, why. The only issue with any of that, it really is it may already be used up. It just depends on.
It may, but we want to know.
Yeah.
And if I could comment, and Councilman Williams, I support that amendment in that order that our attorney has pointed out about getting rid of the date. The idea that if this program is to be reinvented or renewed with additional funds, it would take the same exact process. And it is not for every business that has been closed. That was very clear. It was for businesses that in that second phase, the safer at home one that we're in now, were not allowed to reopen. And so, and of course she bumped that up, but even so, these are the people, and I believe that our advertising might have spoken to that. So we don't want to let businesses think, oh, I was out back before, I'm up and running now, or even limited in scope. They were not the ones the city administration had promoted as being, even being able to apply for this.
Right. This is in accordance with the governor's second to last order.
Yes.
Not just last order, but the second to last.
Exactly. Safer at home, the businesses that could not open. Right. Thank you.
Any further? Okay, so we have an amendment motion. It's been second. We've been having discussion on that. Any further discussion?
We're voting on the amendment, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
I will second it. Rich.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
So that passes 6-1 with the objection coming from the distinguished gentleman from the 5th District.
And now we're going to vote on the measure itself, correct?
That's right. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Vice President?
Yeah, I just want to state just one more time that, about the snail mail situation, that I really think is, an unfair situation to close out earlier, which I know we just passed, that measurement of addition to this particular resolution. But just to remind the public that, what we vote on right now is that the approved an emergency grant program for small businesses, and the money was passed by the council on last week. But again, just trying to just make sure that this is just a fair and open process for all citizens. But again, I have not got a clear understanding as far as in snail mail versus email. And I'm just looking out for the people that, stated that they don't have the email addresses updated and federal, because you got a lot of older people probably had their grandkids had filled out their business application and therefore didn't have the, correct information. I was in touch with a barber on yesterday. He stated that he had got a call from the city that he was approved, and it was followed by email. And, my question is to him later on when I get off this Zoom is, was there an expiration date on it? Because he went through telling other people that it was really true that, the city is approving, and some people went to start applying for it on yesterday. Matter of fact, I called, reached out to Ms. Henderson yesterday because one person had reached out to me and said the particular link wasn't working. And I contacted Ms. Henderson on yesterday and asked her about it. But again, just did not have the knowledge of being closed on last Friday. But again, the people are now noticing that this is true. It is an open process for people, to the citizens of Mobile with business like be in touch with possibly having some emergency grant or emergency money for them. But now it just seems like it just almost just shut down. Just make sure there's an open end process for all, for people that's not with email addresses versus snail mail versus email and everything. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Henderson, so the application, as a result of this potential council action, the application will go back on the website and we will continue to allow persons to apply. Is that how we can envision this moving forward?
That is correct.
Because I share those concerns. It was a tight turnaround in one respect. And I think once people realize that this was a serious grant initiative and people will really be getting resources, there may be an uptick in persons interested. And so I'm hopeful that if we see an additional need, then resources can be found to hopefully meet that need. Any further discussion?
If I may, Mr. President, I'd like for both the administration, for Mr. Woods and for Chris, both Mr. Arledge, to look hard at whether or not we need to re-advertise if, in fact, what we don't anticipate, maybe, that we have a lot more qualified applications come in that exceed the 500, that we find some way to avoid another 7 to 10 or more days in delay for advertising, in a sense that we have advertised. We've talked about this program in detail, and it is simply just additional funding that goes in.
Mr. Williams, you're gonna have to re-advertise if more over 500 is added. The amount was put in the ad.
But it's significant change, Mr. Arledge. That's the definition that we're looking for, is what is a significant change? And if it is, I see the rules changing be more, and who's eligible is more important than the amount of money, because we approved the amount of money in a separate resolution, and which we'll have to do again.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
So I was gonna say, I think Mr. Williams makes valid points, but Mr. Arledge is 100% correct, is if we change that amount under 772, and that's because this is being done under 772, we would have to advertise again for an additional amount if we want to go up. And it's only because of that specific piece of law. The other things would stay exactly the same, but he is 100% correct that we would have to re-advertise to go forward. And if the council wanted to do that, then fair enough.
Well, I don't think any of us would be averse to that. We won't know if there's a demand for it if they're in a live application, which is what I think the concern is. I'd like to ask Ms. Henderson, are we collecting any demographic information as relates to those who apply?
Let me, I can answer that question for you, because I
Sure.
anticipated that question. So here's the interesting thing is, the short answer is no, and that's because businesses typically don't have an ethnicity. But the business owner, that is something that we can, if we don't track that by revenue, but that's not something that's on the application, that's not something that's part of our revenue. So you don't know if the business is minority owned, and that's not an identifier.
Hold 1 second, Mr. Woods. Somebody has joined who has not muted their Zoom session. If you aren't speaking, please utilize the mute. Okay, if you could go back, Mr. Woods.
So what I was saying is the long and short of it is no, businesses typically don't have, the business itself does not have an ethnicity, the owner does. That is something that we can look at, but that's not information we typically connect to the revenue department and this application process. And I can talk to Mr. Arledge offline about why you wouldn't want to do that in some respects, but I think I know where you're at.
Right. I mean, I totally understand that a business wouldn't have an ethnicity, but the living, breathing human that's filling out the application would. And I think it's important for us to understand that if we're going to expend public dollars, where those dollars were expended and in what communities those dollars were expended. And so I'm hopeful that between now and disbursement, a process can be built in that will give us that information. I think that's good information for us to have, even as we're accountable to our citizens moving forward to the effectiveness of the program. And then there's still somebody who has not hit their mute button. Let me go down the list. I don't want to have to call somebody out, but we hear all your ambient noises, or whatever the word was Mr. Dave used.
I just muted it, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I muted the person.
I appreciate it. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Item passes.
Well done. All right.
Okay. Presentation, appeals. We have the appeal of Buzz Jordan on behalf of Cabana Royal, 401 Dolphin Street, concerning the Planning Commission's denial of their application for planning approval to allow an occupancy load of over 100 in the downtown development district. Mr. President, before we start, I would just like to acknowledge that we have received 100, and you all included, have received 120 letters of support, and we've received 3 letters in opposition to this appeal. Wait, I can't hear you.
And we're going to have somebody keeping time on this. I don't know, we didn't agree earlier. Sometimes when there's a limited number of speakers, there is an increased time of speaking. It's up to the council, of course, but Mr. President, have you given that thought?
I have, Madam City Clerk, that's a great point, Mr. Williams. How many persons are signed in to speak?
Ms. Merchant, how many people do we have signed in to speak?
8.
8. Total 4 or against?
3, 4. 3, 4 at least.
So there are 3 speakers for, and how many in opposition?
This is Jerry Spiegel. I'm not signed in, but I wish to speak. I'm on Zoom with you.
5 against.
5 against.
5 against.
So members of, are we going to move forward with our standard 5 minutes? That's fine with me. We're ready, Madam City Clerk.
Mr. Townsend wants to be first.
I don't know about wannabe, but I've been pushed forward. And I apologize for the hair. It's been 2 months. I'm going to get it taken care of as soon as possible. So, but I'm the developer partner with Buzz Jordan for 401 Dolphin Street. Tom Townsend. I live at 186 Williams Street, which is Midtown Mobile. I'm in Mr. Richardson's district, but I look right across from Mr. Manzi's district. So I'm right where the two split. The 401 Dolphin is the business model is music tourism. We're marketing to a youthful audience, and in a 300-mile radius around the city of Mobile, we don't have the organic attendance to be able to fill the building. Our occupancy is 750. That's one of the things that's changed. We've had a few things change. We've reduced the occupancy to 750 from the previous submittal of 850. We have police presence that will be part of the approval. We've agreed to have that in the actual approval, police presence at certain occupancy levels. But the issue that we run into is the business model. We're competing somewhat with the House of Blues in New Orleans. There's certain marketing issues that you have where you have to be the same occupancy levels to tap into the different managers that we have relationships with, the talent managers for people that would be coming through the city off the interstates on the way to Tampa, Jacksonville, and we would be reaching out to them to come to our venue instead of the House of Blues in New Orleans. So there's certain structural issues we have with continuing to reduce the occupancy down. That's been the main issue with the entire business model. We can't do, when we run the numbers on restaurants and residential, if you look at Mobile's population statistics, we lose about 5,000 people every decade. It's made a pretty soft market for the retail and residential and restaurants that are already in downtown. I feel this personally because I have owned a building at 459 Dolphin Street, which is about 2 blocks away from this building since 2003. And I currently have a professional office that's been unrented for almost a year. So we run into issues with what we can actually put into the building and make it a viable project. For us to succeed, we've got to sell the city of Mobile first. We have to convince people outside the city to bring their talent in to our building. So we have to sell the city of Mobile, which means we have to brand it. So we would be actively involved in positive branding for the city of Mobile. We have, then we have to convince people in a 300-mile radius to come visit our venue. If we're successful, if we let the free enterprise system decide whether we're successful or not, if we're successful, the city of Mobile wins. We end up in about 3 to 5 years with $750,000 worth of revenue, which is, if you figure what people that come in for a concert on one day, and you get a certain percentage of them that'll stay the weekend. So you end up with hotel expenditures, restaurant expenditures, parking expenditures. When you do the math, put some safety factors in there for viruses, for wars, for different things. We average about $750,000 per year that we would bring in to the area restaurants and businesses downtown. I don't know how I'm doing with time. Is that 1 minute? Okay, I got 1 minute. I'll talk about that. So we have case studies. There's a lot. It's obviously hard to condense all this in 5 minutes, but we've done case studies with the Metro in Chicago, with the 930 Club in Washington, D.C., and those are both music venues that were there before the residential was in the mid 80s, and the residential filled in around it. And those property values are $260 a square foot. The residential property values, $260 a square foot for residential within a 300-foot radius of the Metro in Chicago. And we have the poster boards, if y'all, and then the 930 Club in Washington, D.C., those are $600 a square foot residential property values. Currently, and that's within a 300-foot radius of the venue. Currently, the property values, which include my building, within 300 feet of 401 Dolphin, are $160 a square foot for residential. So we're trying to make a win-win for Mobile, and if Mobile wins, then we win. So.
Any questions of Mr. Townsend?
Mr. President?
Very good.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of questions. On the application, you all had mentioned the district being a T5 or T5-1, and that there are other venues that have the same designation within the area. Can you explain what that is?
So T5-1 is the actual... Oh, okay, my bad. I've been talking too loud, sorry. Okay. T5-1 is the actual zoning code map that we're in now. It's the highest density of entertainment uses in the city of Mobile, T5-1. That's what we're supposed to use as the four corners of the zoning document. We're supposed to look at T5-1 and whether we're comparable and a fit for the district, and the district is T5-1. Is that what you were asking, or?
Yes. So where you are is T5-1. And then there are other venues nearby that are also T51, correct?
Yes, the Steeple, Soul Kitchen, Soul Kitchen's T52, I believe. Steeple's T51. Most, let's see, O'Daly's is T51. I don't have them off my head, but there's at least, I would say, 10 to 15 entertainment uses in T51 currently.
Which one is closest to where you are? Because you're on Dolphin over there close to the cathedral. So what would be the closest one to you or closest ones?
Probably Steeple and Soul Kitchen and O'Daly's.
So they're all right there in the same vicinity.
Yep, within 3 or 4 blocks, one way or the other.
Okay, that's all.
I have a question, if I might, if I could just ask the gentleman a question. Thank you. Mr. Townsend, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. On that 930 club that you mentioned in Washington, D.C. that you made reference to, did that predate those developments down there? Or did the club come after those developments that you say are so successful? I imagine you're talking about residential, correct?
Yes. And yes, the 930 Club's been there since the 80s. And there's actually, if you look up, it's called Atlantic Plumbing. I believe it's Atlantic Plumbing Condos. And it's very similar to the Mattress Factory, where they kept the name of the original use of the building and created the development out of it. This was called Atlantic Plumbing, and they developed condos in it within the last, I hope I'm getting this right, but I think it's Atlantic Plumbing, and that's the $600 per square foot development. And that was actually purposely built marketing to the fact that it's right across from the 930 Club.
Right. So the 930 Club was there first. So in other words,
yes,
it's not an, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Start.
Are y'all ready for the next speaker?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Townsend.
Yes, sir.
The question that I have, I've received a lot of commentary relative to the project. This is the third iteration of your development proposal. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, only second to the city.
Well, second to the city. We've never appealed before, I don't believe, to city council.
Second time we appealed.
That's right. Second time we appealed and withdrew. So this is our first real appeal to the city council.
But I guess my concern is, can you go over briefly the differences between what you are seeking now as opposed to where you were at the very beginning? Because I understand that maybe some concessions have been made, some new ideas have been brought to the table. If you could go over some of that briefly, it would be helpful too.
That's a great question. So we reduced the occupancy down. It was originally 907, which is what we could legally have for life safety. And we reduced that down to, we're at 750. We removed the rooftop bar use. That was a proposal that we were going to do. Now that was going to have limitations on it, but we removed it outright. That was requested of us to do. And then, let me see my notes. Oh, and then the police presence. We put in writing as a part of our submittal that we would have Mobile officers, not rented third party, but Mobile officers who are familiar with the code, who could enforce loitering and cruising and hours and make it the safest block, frankly, in downtown Mobile, as part of the approval. So those were the big concessions. What's that? Oh, the decibel check. We agreed to have throughout the construction to have decibel checks during it. We're dealing with a couple of entities. We have, sorry if I'm over answering, but it's a complicated issues in the construction side. We're getting a National Park Service historic tax credit. I did that on the other building that I have at 459 Dolphin. I'm familiar with the process. They want you to minimally alter the existing structures. So we want to meet code, meet the sound requirements, and we could easily meet it if we just build a concrete wall in front. We know we can meet it. It's just a matter of how much, in front of the windows. It's just a matter of how much we have to add. And so anyway, the sound checks are also included in with the concessions that we made. Real quick, it brings up a good point. The city has also changed since we originally were turned down. In 2017, the city council approved the downtown land use, which actually has the language 24/7 vibrance for the T51 district that we're in. So you all approved a downtown land use in the new code that was adopted in 2017 that states the projects that we're trying to do, that it actually encourages 24/7 vibrance. It's got that language in there. So that's a big difference that the city's actually step toward us on our project. You've also approved, we got turned down for planning approval. That's an extra layer of regulation that got put in 2013 for approvals for everyone that's asking for over 100 occupancy. You've since approved 8 for that planning approval. 8 additional have been approved since we were turned down previously. I think that's kind of the biggest changes that have happened since.
Let me ask you, I know in some previous conversations, there was some discussion about the entryway to this particular proposal. And is it still going to be off of Dolphin Street, or are you intending to use Dolphin as the entryway, or was there another idea that was proposed?
And thanks so much for bringing that up. This is 100% going to happen. Our front doors, the quick answer is no, we will not be having main entry in Dolphin Street, because our doors are only 60 inches wide. And to meet code, you've got to be 72. You have to be 3 foot for ADA compliance. So because the historic tax credit wants us to maintain those 2 doors that are 60 inches when you open the 2, we were going to have 96 inches of door on Hamilton Street, which is a side street. So what the front door would do would be some kind of very, it's going to have people coming in. We're not exactly sure how it'll lay out yet, but it will be much less people coming in through Dolphin than the 96 inches of side doors on Hamilton Street.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Any further questions of Mr. Townsend?
Not at the moment.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Buzz Jordan. I reside at 15 South Reed Avenue, which is in President Manzi's district. We have provided the city council. Well, thank you for being here, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and thank you, City Council, for giving this opportunity to talk to you. We have 121 letters in support of our project. Some of the downtown businesses that have submitted letters is the Pizzeria Delfina, Certus Brewery, the Bluefish Market, Iron Hand Brewery, Firehouse Wine Bar, as well as others. There's presently, as a mayor, we've read many articles where the mayor's talked about blighted buildings downtown. We've also read many articles where President Manzi has been pushing for more music development, festivals of music downtown. Of course, Councilman Richardson brought in the Moon Pie, which has brought us national attention on New Year's Eve, which is amazing and a big boost for downtown. And we're frankly trying to do the same thing. We just heard about the Visit Mobile, the new tourism hotel situation, where they're trying to bring people tourists to Mobile. Well, that's what we want. You've got Austin City Limits in Austin that has huge publicity, has huge, great music events. Well, we could be the Mobile City Limits, comparable to Austin City Limits, where we're bringing in national acts, where we'll bring in people from New Orleans that'll come to Mobile to hear music. People come from Biloxi to Mobile to hear music. People come from Pensacola to Mobile to hear music. They'll stay at our hotels. They'll go to our restaurants. They'll go to our bars. And that's our true goal. There's presently 700,000 of blighted, vacant square footage space in downtown Mobile. There's presently 1,700,000 empty space of available vacant space downtown. The 100-person limit on our facility, I submitted, it may be, our building is 9,000 square feet. And I submit it may be arbitrary and capricious because if the 100-person applies to a 1,500 square foot building, a 4,500 square foot building, a 9,000 square foot building like ours, it would even apply to a 45,000 square foot building where you could only have 100 people come in. And so it is basically not economically feasible to develop a 9,000 square foot building for a 100-person music venue. The new businesses, as Tom talked about, the Steeple is very close to us. And the city council recently approved their over 600 occupancy there. And they put up music events, they put on plays, they bring, thank goodness, they bring a lot of tourism and activity and a lot of buzz to downtown Mobile. I remember when I used to go downtown Mobile on Friday night, it was a ghost town. Go down now on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, a Thursday, a Friday, downtown, of course, before the virus, it was buzzing. Traffic everywhere, cars everywhere, people everywhere, restaurants full, bars full. I was just amazed. I recently bought the A&M Peanut Shop downtown, and I'm just amazed at the number of tourists that come into the peanut shop, the 4 or 5 generations of Mobilians that come in there and tell me all their stories of coming to the peanut shop. And then we pay a substantial amount of sales tax every year to the city. This would also be a tax revenue generator for the city of Mobile. The sales tax from the operation of a new, nice business downtown would only be benefit to the city. We have, at one time, noise was considered an issue. Well, Tom works for a huge contracting company. He flies all over the country doing huge contracting projects. His company put on the new roof here at the Government Plaza. They do all kind of big, and he's the contractor in charge. He's already spent, 1 minute. He's already spent $150,000 to save that building. You know, that's a beautiful, artistic, old building. And I didn't have the know-how or the finances to save it. The roof had caved in, water was coming in every time it rained. That building was about to just fall down on its own. And maybe perhaps the opposition to this would have preferred that building didn't survive and it would just be an empty space there. But Tom saved it himself, saved that building, made it waterproofed. It's a historic building. It would be great for downtown. And we would love to bring in substantial musical acts to this area, much like the Austin city limits. You know, one of the biggest complaints about this project is, well, it's going to have people on Dolphin Street. There's going to be more people on Dolphin Street. Well, Dolphin Street is for the people. Dolphin Street is it's activity. And that's what draws people to town. Tom was telling me earlier that the Meridian, which was just built, is 80% vacant. You know, if you have a thriving music industry downtown, people are going to want to move downtown. People are going to want to move to the area. Real estate values are going to go up. If we renovate that building, it's going to appreciate everything around it. A lot of times you see one building developed and then everybody else gets all excited and say, oh, well, we're going to build something too. We're going to take advantage of that growth and development. And that's, quite frankly, what we're proposing. So thank you for listening to us. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. President?
Ms. Gregory and then Mr. Davis.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jordan, you brought up the terms arbitrary and capricious, and I think that's what you are basing your appeal on from what the Planning Commission denied. And I want to go through the reasons. We have that in our packet. The proposal will not be appropriate with regard to transportation and access, water supply, waste disposal, fire, police protection, and other public facilities. The proposal will cause undue traffic congestion or create a traffic hazard. And the proposal will not be in harmony with the orderly and appropriate development of the district in which the use is located. I don't know if this is for you or for Mr. Townsend, but if you could address that A, B, and C. I think you've already addressed some of that, but if you could go through those.
Yes, ma'am. You named off a lot. I'll try to hit some of them. For example,
those were the reasons that the Planning Commission gave to deny you.
okay, well, for example, the increased traffic. Tom and I sat down at the 401 one night on a Friday night, just a normal Friday night. It wasn't even Art Walk Friday night, from about 9 o'clock till about 1 o'clock. And Dolphin Street, the traffic was backed up. In other words, you could barely walk across the street without getting hit by a car. We had nothing to do with that. So you already have traffic on downtown on Dolphin Street. So we're not adding to it. We're not affecting it. We're not impacting it. It's already there. The trash collection, the trash is going to be on the side away from Dolphin Street. And the city is pretty efficient at picking up trash. At the peanut shop, they've been marvelous at picking up any trash that's put out on the curb on Dolphin Street. So I don't see trash as being a problem. The fire department loved us. When Tom submitted his plan to the city urban development, the fire department was ecstatic about what he was proposing. He proposed the sprinkler system, all the outlets for the water, so that they were extremely happy. The Mobile Police Department, I think, is going to be happy because we're going to employ off-duty Mobile police officers anytime we have an event, and they're going to be paid in addition to, they're going to be paid, and they like, of course, doing paid and doing private jobs, and they're trained by the Mobile Police Department. So we're confident of that. So as far as with the rest of the area, beside us is Hoffman Furniture, which is a huge, takes up almost the entire block beside us and behind us. We're not going to impact Hoffman Furniture at all. We've got new restaurants diagonally across the street from us. Southern National, I don't think we're going to hurt them. If anything, we're going to hopefully help them to survive. The guy that used to own the Buck's Pizza, they closed that. But I think the man that owns Delfina Pizza, who wrote us a letter, is going to open up an oyster bar. We're hardly out. We're not going to be hurting that. That's going to be being a business to that. We're right down the street from we're right near the police department annex. So I mean, I could throw a rock and hit the police annex. So we've got police protection there. You've got the Cathedral Park right there, where they do all kind of musical events all the time. Private city organized musical events that brings tons of people downtown. Other special events downtown that go on at the Cathedral Place. Yeah. So I would submit we are in fact in conformity with the area. To the left of us, if you're going out the door, you have all the development from O'Daly's and all that development down there, the Moe's, the bicycle shop, and all of those places, to where that's all right there. It's within walking distance. You can walk to Heroes, you can walk to Southern National, you can walk to Moe's, you can walk to O'Daly's, you can walk all those restaurants and bars in that area. There's a new restaurant that just opened up too on Dolphin Street. I forget the lady's name, but she's a famous chef. You can walk to that restaurant. So, we're going to be helping that area of growth, not hurting it or taking away from it. And this is Dolphin Street. This is the heart of our entertainment and business for the entire city of Mobile. So I hope that addressed most of those concerns, Ms. Councilwoman.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Jordan?
I have a question.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Jordan, I'd like to ask really the same question Ms. Gregory asked, but in a different way. As I believe the only way we can reverse the decision of the Planning Commission is if we conclude that they acted arbitrarily in denying your request. So what I'd like to ask you to do is tell me how you think they acted arbitrarily in denying the request.
Well, initially, the ordinance may have a big problem with it because when you impose a 100-person limit on a space without, whether it's 1,500 or 4,500 or 9,000 or 45,000 square feet, that's the initial problem. And that's basically in the ordinance itself. The second thing is, since the last time we went before the Planning Commission, the steeple has opened up. I could throw a rock and hit the steeple, and it's for more than 600 people. So the exact same arguments that they will be making against our building, they could have made or can make against the steeple. So why is the steeple allowed to do exactly the same thing we're doing? And I'm not criticizing the steeple. I'm glad the steeple got approved for it. I'm glad that the steeple is bringing people downtown for our hotels and restaurants and bars. But we're in the same category as the steeple. The Soul Kitchen, which is not far from us, of course, it's outside the district, so it's a little different, but they have capacity of over 600 people. And I love it when they have a concert. I own the peanut shop one door down from the Soul Kitchen, and it's a boom for the business. And I'll probably be building an apartment above the peanut shop when I can pull it off. And I'll love to have the Soul Kitchen with events there, either to rent the place out, because a lot of people want to live by a music venue, as Tom kind of told about some of these other music venues. So that's where our position of arbitrary and capricious enters into, especially since trash is not an issue, noise is not an issue, traffic is not an issue. We're not adding anything to those things that aren't already there existing within the city. And they're all being managed by the city and will be managed by us with our police presence, our off-duty police presence, with the entry into our building on the side of the building, which will be off of Dolphin Street, so it won't create any kind of situation for people being out there on the street as to that part. But thank you, Councilman, for that question, because that's been a big position of ours.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any further questions of Mr. Townsend?
One last thing that Mr. Townsend
Jordan.
pointed out to me, Councilman. I'm
Jordan,
sorry.
pardon.
Yes.
This Buzz Jordan, and I know that. Any other questions of Mr. Jordan? Did you have something else you wanted to add, Mr. Jordan?
Just one last thing I wanted to add to the councilman's question, and I forgot. Tom pointed out to me the entertainment district is not for zoning. So the zoning does not apply. If he could answer that question.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. The entertainment district, Councilman Davies, this is answering your question. The entertainment district was used against us in the support for denial on every occasion by the Planning Commission. The problem with it is, if you are taking the four corners of a zoning ordinance, the entertainment district is nowhere to be found in there. The entertainment district is a 3-page open container ordinance that I'm sure you all are very aware of, but it isn't even enforced on its face. You can bring an open container through that 3-block gap, and there are no citations written. So the reason for the zoning ordinance that it's actually on its face for are not enforced. However, it was used against us to claim that we were not in harmony with the district. That's a huge problem with an arbitrary and capricious ruling, using something that's not a zoning ordinance as a zoning ordinance.
Any other questions of Mr. Jordan?
Speak in favor of it.
Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk.
We have one more speaker in favor of the bill. Go ahead.
My name is Vince Kilborn, lifelong resident, born here, raised here, educated here. Know just about everybody on the council. My father was a businessman, lawyer here. His father was a lawyer here. And I know the heritage of Mobile. So if you don't object, I'm going to speak from the heart.
Mr. Kilburn, before you go too much further, could you give us your address, please?
Oh, I live at 6855 Stanford Lane, Montrose, Alabama.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. And I didn't say, with due respect, Mr. President, council members, and the mayor, I know just about all of y'all, but speaking from the heart, I have seen downtown Mobile go through many cycles. The cycles have been all of a sudden retail left downtown Mobile. Many council members, many councils and mayors have tried to do things to bring it back unsuccessfully. As I see it, as a person that loves Mobile, this is a seminal moment for the city of Mobile. This council, this mayor is ready to move the city forward. You just voted on the, I think Mr. Clark presented the formation of the Tourist Bureau, the Tourist Council to get hotels in here. So now, unfortunately, we're not a retail venue downtown Mobile, we're an entertainment venue. We have hotels, we have restaurants, and guess what? Part of entertainment is music. Music is the soul and the heart of Mobile. We need a Mobile House of Blues. And that's what this is going to end up being. It will be known as the Mobile House of Blues, and the council will be proud that Buzz Jordan, who's my good friend and who's a fabulous guy, and I think we're lucky to have him to be the developer. It could be some out-of-town person that buys the building, comes in and then tries to do this and then rents it out just for profit. Buzz has got a business downtown. He is a downtown guy. So I do think that the blues is the heart and soul of Mobile. We mentioned the steeple. Well, guess what? I've been to the steeple. The Farrell Repertory Theater had a really good function over there. And guess what they had? They had about 150 kids all singing. It was a nighttime. Everybody loved it. So we got plenty of music. It was theater music, but that's just one kind of music that's great. Here we got blues. I told Buzz, I said, look, how about a Sunday afternoon in your music venue? Have some chamber music so people just don't leave downtown Mobile. They enjoy chamber music. Well, I used to hate it, but now I love it. So what's wrong with a little of that? Bottom line is, I think that we need to move the city forward. And this is the last hope, I think, to make a change in the dynamics of Mobile. That is, let's provide what people want. They want food, they want safety, they want entertainment, they want music. And so I hope that this council will make the decision for music and not against music. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Kilburn? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And now we'll have the speakers against the appeal. Who's first?
Yes, this is Jerry Spiegel.
Jerry Spiegel.
Let me see. Let's see. There we go. I'm a lawyer. I represent the board of directors of the Mattress Factory, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on their behalf today. Mattress Factory condos are essentially right across the street. They're 50 feet from this project. My address is 4320 Babb Street, Mobile. But I have had an office downtown since 1982. I've watched what's gone on downtown over the years. It's, of course, as everyone knows, development's gone up and down. One thing that was stated in the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting that was just a missed typo is that I said that downtown is declining. Downtown is not declining, in my view. I go home on St. Louis Avenue every night. It's phenomenal what's going on over there. It's phenomenal what's going on downtown. It used to be years ago, you couldn't even get a decent sandwich. Now we have restaurants down here. We have Noble South. We have all the others. And my clients aren't against development. As a matter of fact, they want a vibrant downtown. To them, vibrant downtown is residential, it's retail, it's shops, it's restaurants. And my folks were here first. They've invested many hundreds of thousands of dollars in their condominiums. And to rule that you could put a music venue, which admittedly at the Planning Commission meeting is going to dump 750 people out on the street at maybe 2 a.m. in the morning, to disrupt their life, disrupt their sleep. Is it one time a week? Is it 2 or 3 times a week? Sleep is a valuable commodity, as those of us who are getting older realize. And this is going to disrupt those residents. It's going to disrupt the other residents. I want what is continuing to happen, which is development of downtown. And I think when the city council decided that they wanted orderly and appropriate development in harmony with the neighborhood, that's a great goal. This music venue doesn't meet those requirements. The Planning Commission made the decision. I won't go over their 3 findings of fact, but I would present to the council that those were well-reasoned. There was plenty of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting. I was there. Their decision is most certainly not arbitrary and capricious. It's well thought out, based on facts and essentially the same discussion you heard from the developers today. As far as the noise, that is a big problem. Also, the traffic's a big problem. At the last meeting, I brought up the fact that I have over the years been involved with a developer who's developed FedEx freight projects really around the country. And part of what I do is I review the noise studies done by the engineers. I'm well aware of what these noise studies are, how to evaluate them. I presented to the Planning Commission that these developers haven't presented to the Planning Commission or anyone else, even the names of the engineers that are supposed to be preparing a sound study. There should be a sound study done before any approval of this project. You have simply old brick and mortar in this facility, and I don't believe that they are going to be able to meet the noise regulations for this district without spending more money than they intend to spend. I think you need to get them to have a sound study before anything happens. Let them come back with a sound study. What's going to happen is that you're going to have a violation of the noise regulations, which is going to be an imposition on the safety of the community, the residential community, and it's going to be an imposition on the police department. The restriction from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is that you cannot have any plainly audible noise at a distance of 25 feet or more from the property line. Also, you cannot create any noise which exceeds 50 decibels. I don't believe these people have done any sound study. I don't believe they can show to the council today, and they certainly didn't to the Planning Commission, that there's been a sound study done with a proposal for development that would allow them to meet the noise regulation. Michael made a substantial investment downtown, and they want to keep their investment. They want to keep their peace and quiet, and they want more residential development. They want retail. None of this is provided by this project. To say that, as I heard, that this is the last hope for downtown development, I think not. Go down St. Louis Street. But what it may do is kill residential development if developers are allowed to put up venues like this that are going to disrupt the residents' way of life after they've invested substantial amounts of money. I think from a policy point of view, the council needs to follow the Planning Commission, which is the commission that you appointed, who are pretty much experts on development and urban planning. You say there are letters in support. Maybe they are. I would suggest you look at them and see whether they're residents within a block of this facility. And the steeple is, I don't believe, if I recall, that you had a lot of opposition to the steeple. And the steeple is not a problem for my clients. It doesn't cause a disruption, but we expect this will cause a disruption. We don't believe that the Planning Commission was arbitrary at all in their decision. We think it was fact-based. We don't think that the proponents of this development have in fact overcome their very high standard of showing that the Planning Commission was arbitrary in their ruling.
Any questions of Mr. Spiegel?
I have a question, Mr. President.
Mr. Daves?
Mr. Spiegel, how do you counter the argument that once the city allowed the Steeple and Soul Kitchen occupancies of 600 plus, that it's not arbitrary to deny a similar occupancy to this venue we're talking about today? I mean, they're all three musical venues, and the Steeple and Soul Kitchen have population limits almost as large as the ones being requested. So, what I'm having a hard time figuring out how it's not arbitrary to deny this request when the previous requests have been approved.
Well, I think you have to look at the Steeple and who's around the Steeple and the residents situation there, whether you have full-time residents there. I haven't gone down to the Steeple to look around, but I know where it's located. I don't recall there being a substantial number of residents around. This is about the residents and their disruption of life. And Ms. Rich commented at the Planning Commission meeting that she would like that whatever is placed here should attract residences to the area. There are many other locations for a music venue, and there's no vibrant downtown without residents and residences. And I believe that to be true. So the answer is, I don't know the specific facts of the Steeple, but simply looking at the number of people that can be allowed in the venue is not the criteria here to decide. And I don't think that's what the Planning Commission used. What the Planning Commission was looking at is not whether there are venues that have as many people allowed on the premises, but what is in the immediate surrounding area and whether there are will be created problems with attracting new residential owners in this area.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Spiegel? Thank you, Mr. Spiegel.
Thank you all.
I guess I should say good afternoon. My name is Father Bill Skinecki. I'm the rector of the cathedral, the chief administrative officer of the Archdiocese of Mobile. I live at 400 Government Street. The Archdiocese remains opposed to the zoning change as it was in 2014 and 15. We already deal with very loud concerts in Cathedral Square, concerts that can be heard inside the cathedral during weddings, even with the cathedral doors closed. The Perot's music venues, of course, is just across the street from the backside of the cathedral. And no amount of soundproofing will be adequate if the building has windows, which it will. And when the doors are open, which will often be, those doors on Franklin Street, closer to the cathedral and closer to the residents of Cathedral Place. As 750 people come and go. Every time a door is open, it's going to be a disruption. The applicant has said they'll work with us to avoid conflicts, but that's an unenforceable promise. It's also hard to understand how two police officers can take care of 750 people leaving all at once. One incident, the police officers taking them and booking them, the police officers are gone. I'm told about 1,800 people live in downtown Mobile. And that means 10% of the people living in downtown live within one block of 401 Dolphin. The 200 residents, nearly 200 residents of Cathedral Place, a number of whom belong to the cathedral. Most of them are older and with low income. They have few or no options as where they can afford to live, unlike most of us. Noise is an issue. Even if the noise level inside the building can be controlled, just the conversation of 750 people leaving from a concert as late as between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is going to be enough to disturb the sleep of many Cathedral Place and other nearby residents. There's a fundamental difference between the steeple and which is not so close by, is that the events there and at the Cathedral Square, they all end at 10 p.m. Outdoor concerts end, the Zell House outdoor wedding receptions end, steeple events, they all end pretty much at that time, not at 2 o'clock in the morning. When I was the pastor at St. Michael in Auburn, I was located for a point about 2 blocks from downtown. And I never heard any noise from the bars themselves. What did wake me up sometimes, though, was a conversation between somebody, at least one drunk person, at 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning outside my window, even though I lived 2 blocks away. There was very little parking located in our direction. It was a college town. I lived with it. But the residents at around 401 Dolphin shouldn't have to do so. Auburn's downtown is only about 3 blocks. There are plenty of other places for a large entertainment venue in a much larger downtown area, because the residents at Cathedral Place and around 401 were there first. They deserve protection provided by the Kerning zoning limits. Few people live around the steeple or the Soul Kitchen. Both are surrounded mainly by businesses, not residences. Downtown residential development is not going to continue if potential new residents are afraid that their homes will be adversely impacted by a large change in occupancy limits just like this after the fact. A venue holding almost 4 times the number of residents is not a use of medium density in this little part of downtown. It's not in harmony with development, appropriate development of this particular area of downtown. Other places are. And 120 letters of support through a marketing campaign doesn't address the whole issue, the issue about whether or not the Planning Commission abused their discretion. That's the standard, a very high standard. One comment I'd make, the entertainment district is not a zoning ordinance. That was pointed out by the applicants at the Planning Commission meeting, as the councilperson president could attest to. That was made clear. But that's why 401's not, why is it not part of the entertainment district? Because of the nature of our little part of downtown, highly concentrated residential. That's a relevant fact they should consider in zoning, but they didn't. They listened to people like me. They listened both pro and con. 6 people talked to the hearing, many others in writing. The Planning Commission asked questions, discussed the issue among themselves, and made a decision. It was right 6 years ago, 5 years ago. It was not appropriate zoning in our part of downtown back then. It's still not appropriate. It's still the right decision. I urge you to deny this appeal. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker. My name is Jean Langford. My office is at 356 Dolphin Street, Mobile, Alabama. I've been in the real estate business, commercial, and a big part of downtown Mobile for the last 30 years. I could speak to you today about the mayor's and city council's vision for downtown Mobile and how they hired world famous and highly respected urban protectionists, architects, and planners, Andreas Duani and Elizabeth Plater-Zybert, to redesign our current downtown codes. And how
did you give us your address?
Yes, sir. 356 Dolphin Street.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. How these codes have been implemented by the city council for those who live and work in downtown, and how well they have attracted others, residences, and businesses to be a part of this vision. I speak today about the millions of dollars that have been spent over the last 20 years in our neighborhood, we informally call the GAP. Because of our commitments and actions, we've been successful at creating a neighborhood whose temperament is well-balanced, peaceful, and easygoing. The reasons why our neighborhood community has this kind of temperament is because we have anchors of stability here. A 170-year-old historic basilica of the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception, its bishop, its regional offices, the 45-year-old Cathedral's Place residential retirement community, the 100-year-old business of Hoffman's Furniture, and the 20-year-old residential development of the Mattress Factory. But today I will paint a picture about these anchors of stability that make up our neighborhood community and a brief history of how we got here. Our anchors, of course, the cathedral were here in 1850. The Archdiocese moved to Government Street in 1901, which connects to the cathedral. And then the Cathedral Place Retirement Community was developed with 192 residential units in the 1970s. The Mattress Factory in 2000 was developed and contains 28 residential units. The 260 Dolphin Street development apartments, the 360 Dolphin Street development and apartments with 10 residential units was developed in 2016. These are our anchors. These are the people who support our residential and 10% of the residential downtown Mobile community. We were here first. In 2014, new zoning ordinance of the Downtown Development District Code was adopted by the City Council. So in 2014, 2015, and 2020, 3 times before the Planning Commission, the applicants have proposed an occupancy of 750 for use as a performance and entertainment venue. In 2015, it was not appealed to the City Council because there were not enough votes and it was withdrawn. The Planning Commission rejected the applicant 3 times along the basis of the codes that the applicant's proposed use is not in harmony with the orderly and appropriate development of the surrounding neighborhood, whose temperament is firmly established and composed heavily as residential, religious, clerical, and light business. These zoning codes are in place to protect from the diminishing the quality of life and the investments made by the surrounding neighborhood, property owners, church, businesses, and residences. Why does the applicant continue to persist in forcing a use on a residential-based neighborhood who overwhelmingly is against it? If the applicants were more respectful of their neighbors, why don't they apply for another use for their property more compatible with the well-grounded, peaceful nature of our neighborhood? For examples, they could build a boutique hotel, a multi-tenanted mixed-use live-work building, a retail or service-oriented, or even a restaurant, but they continue to persist. Using the reason that there are not enough parking will not work. Certainly not enough public parking for a 750-person entertainment venue. We ask once again that the applicant be denied on the basis that the proposed use is not in harmony with the orderly and appropriate development of the surrounding neighborhood, whose temperament is firmly established and composed as heavily residential, religious, clerical, and light business. A use such as this can be located in another portion of downtown, properly zoned, without impacting the size of the residential and business nature of our community. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Ms. Langford. Any questions of Ms. Langford?
Yes.
No, I was just asking members of the council, did they have any questions of you?
No.
Thank you so much, Ms. Langford.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Weisinger, and I live at the Mattress Factory. My address is 412 Dolphin Street, Unit R. And I invested in downtown Mobile before the Mattress Factory received its occupancy permit. So I've been there from the beginning. And like Mobile, the Mattress Factory has stabilized, grown. It's got an incredible occupancy of permanent residents who care deeply about the city and care deeply about what is happening in Mobile. Your vote today is not a vote for music or against music. That's just a false dichotomy. Everyone I submit living in the Mattress Factory, although I haven't asked them this question, loves music, and they want to support music venues in Mobile, those that exist now or new ones that are placed in an appropriate setting. The issue before you is whether or not the Planning Commission's decision was arbitrary and capricious. As our attorney has submitted, it is not. I know that you received allegedly 121 letters of support or petitions of support. I want to just point out to the council that you do have a letter on file from our homeowners association, and that reflects 26 residents of the mattress factory. And the proponents of this endeavor sought support during art walks when they opened their building, had some music and had some food. I've spoken to some people on the street that signed the petition that had no idea there were residents living right across the street. They had no idea of the experience the residents had with another music venue down the street. And I know no one wants to hear about that, but I lived through it when the music box was on Dauphin Street. So we don't have to speculate about what is going to happen here. The noise will be intrusive. The noise will disturb our sleep. I called the police department, tried to figure out how you investigate a noise complaint. It would be untenable should this music venue starting playing at 10 o'clock at night, who knows how many nights a week, be allowed to proceed. The proponents also talk about that they won't add to noise, traffic, or trash, but yet they are going to deliver all of this money and revenues to the tax base in the city and to the restaurants that are surrounding their venue. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to have 750 people coming into an area to listen to music, standing up, not much seating in there. We all know they're going to be drinking and they're going to be departing at 12:30, 1:30 in the morning. You're going to have Ubers circling the blocks. You're going to have taxis circling the blocks. You're going to have people trying to find people. Yo, where are you? We're here. All of that will happen on the streets of Dauphin Street, and we will not be able to sleep. It did happen when the music box was there. They were unable to control the noise level of the music box. It wound up relocating to a more appropriate place. This is the cheapest plan for the building at 401, which we all care about, and we're delighted that it now has a roof. It sat in disrepair for year after year after year. But it is the cheapest plan that would be executed at the expense of the residents. And the Downtown Development Code, part of its purposes is to guide siting, form, and use of private property, buildings, and to support the walkability, safe streets, and safe public spaces. That's what our building has done for Mobile. People that come into the mattress factory love it. We've got dog walkers in the building. We've got people who are out and about. Is that time? All right, thank you. Sorry. So that the thing that residential development in a area like this counts on is reliability and predictability. And moving into downtown, knowing that our building was near the cathedral, it was in the neighborhood it was in, promoted investments and promoted people to invest in their lofts. In the mattress factory, people have spent tens of thousands of dollars improving their condominiums. It is totally unfair for the rules to change and a music venue to go in next door where our sleep will be disturbed, trash and traffic will destroy our quality of life. So I urge you strenuously to vote against this proposal. I've spent time on it in 14, 15, and now. And I hope that the council vote is unanimous so that we're not here again in 2 or 3 years with a different proposal. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of our last speaker? Thank you so much.
That concludes the speakers.
Madam City Clerk.
Okay. Oh, then that's all the speakers for the appeal. Then we need a motion. The Are you going to vote on it today, or are you going to?
I'd ask that we would hold this over an additional week if possible.
Okay.
Second.
There's been a popular motion and second. Any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. We have received one piece of communication to you all, and that is from Reggie Hill. Ordinances being introduced for the first time, 50014. I need a motion or accept.
Lay over for 1 week pursuant to council rules.
Announcements.
Well, okay, I heard them. It's time for announcements now, Madam City Clerk.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mrs. Rich?
Can't hear you, Bess.
Can hear you, Beth.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I will weigh in next week on the discussion of this planning commission issue. Since it's laid over, I was going to add some dimension to the arguments. As your planning commissioner, I was present for both sides of that argument and the planning commission's ultimate vote. So I'll reserve that for next week when we go to actually vote on that application for the appeal. I really don't have any other announcements to make other than to thank the administration for working on the program that will give some relief to those businesses. I know that they worked diligently to pull that together, and I look forward for getting the information that has been achieved through that. And also I have written to Mr. DeLapp, our Executive Director of Public Services, about the PAYGO program that the county is pulling together. And I had asked him if he would meet with my office to discuss that program. I don't know if other council people are dealing with that right now with their commissioners at their office on the county side and trying to get that list together. But I look forward to that opportunity. I know we've been not meeting or seeing each other at pre-conference and everything as of late. But I would like for the administration to know the desire that my office had to work with the city and getting that list together to Commissioner Hudson, who will then present it back to the council for its final vote and acceptance for maintenance. And that is coming down in a deadline. So I look forward to hearing from the administration and having those meetings. So that's it. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Mr. Williams?
No, thank you.
Ms. Gregory?
Thank you, Mr. President. Like Mrs. Rich, I too have been in contact with the administration to work on our pay-as-you-go program, and look forward to getting with the mayor and Colonel DeLapp and others to put that program together, working with Commissioner Hudson in particular on the next PAYGO program. Last week at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, I was part of, well, I wasn't that much a part of it other than the fact that I contributed to and visited their food giveaway in coordination with Feeding the Gulf Coast. I was happy to contribute. They gave away 10,000 tons of food to 300 plus families. They had everything put together, lots of volunteers from the church. So just a big shout out to them and everything they did to help the families who are in need. I also have another Feeding the Gulf Coast event coming up at Hillsdale at Smith Memorial Methodist Church. This will be on the 23rd at 10 o'clock. It's first come, first served, just like the one at Friendship was. And they too will be giving away 10,000 pounds of food. They have volunteers coming from the church and other places, but if you're interested in volunteering, I'm sure they can use your help. So just look forward to working with them. And then last week I had mentioned that the library would be starting their curbside pickup if you've got books on hold that you want to check out. They were still developing plans and they have moved that curbside pickup to the 13th. I received an email this morning saying that they have changed it to the 13th. So again, that means that you can put a book on hold or a tape or a movie on hold and reserve it and come by and pick it up at curbside. I don't know the details. You probably have to call or email or something to arrange it. But anyway, it does start on the 13th. And they are following the city's lead as far as reopening the library. So we should hear more from them soon on that. And that's all I've got, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Mr. Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to participate in the funeral of Mrs. Hazel Wiggins. Mrs. Hazel Wiggins was an outstanding citizen in the city of Mobile. She grew up partially in Roger Williams, and she went on to get her college degree. She taught school for 35 years. She was an outstanding member of the Stone Street Baptist Church, where she was the secretary of the Sunday school, and she served on the Ushers Board. So she was funeralized yesterday, and we are in prayer with the family. I just wanted to make mention of her. Also, I'd like to make mention of the fact that I'm not satisfied with what I see in regards to our citizens in various businesses without face masks on, especially the younger members of the community. It seems to me that they're not taking in the full effect the seriousness of the coronavirus. I would like to see the businesses step up to the plate to say that you need a mask to come in. I know Costco is already doing that. But if you look at the scale, the virus is still moving straight up. It's not making no turn. There's not a being in the city of Mobile. It's still on the move. People are still dying from it. So as we go toward opening up our businesses, we have to keep in mind that the virus is still out there. And the only way it's going to go is with all of us work together to do what we've been told we should do in order to get rid of it. We should put our face mask on when we are in the company of others. And we should, on a regular basis, we should wash our hands with soap and water. So I'm just encouraging all of our citizens to do that, and let's see this through so we can be back as we used to be. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Greetings to all the citizens of District 3. I know that last week I had stated I was going to have some great news for the citizens in the Oakdale community, which I do. I just don't have the exact date. We was looking to have a groundbreaking ceremony for the Baltimore Street, and we had scheduled it for May 25th. Talking to Ms. Amy Williams, and then I discovered that May 25th was Memorial Day. I guess being quarantined, that all our days are running together, really ain't no big holidays. So I talked to Ms. Williams on this morning, and so we're just going to get back to see when the contractors are going to get back to work. Are they going to work on Memorial Day, or we're just going to push the groundbreaking out to the 26th of May? But either which day, we're going to send out letters to all the citizens, especially along the Baltimore Street area and area churches, and invite them out to this groundbreaking ceremony. Again, it's something great that is happening, just not only in the Oakdale community, but in the city of Mobile, on the worst streets being attacked by the 1 cent sales tax and the good that it does in having the 1 cent sales tax. And again, looking to make an official date and time on next Tuesday. And also just remember, wash your hands, stay safe, stay 6 feet apart. Again, this virus has not gone nowhere. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Very wise counsel. Mr. Davis.
No announcements, Mr. President.
Mr. Williams.
You'd already called up. Good. Thank you.
I thought you were indicating you wanted to say something else.
Smile.
I want to just remind by way of my announcements. Hopefully next Wednesday, we will be having the first of our food giveaways in District 2 there at the, we've partnered with 2 churches in our district, the Yorktown Missionary Baptist Church in Plateau, and also the True Vine Baptist Church on the Avenue, working with Feeding the Gulf Coast so that we can provide food giveaways to about 600 families in the district. So hopefully that will kick off next Wednesday. We'll know for certain. We'll be getting the word out during using our various social media outlets and getting it out to the press. And appreciative of all of the hard work of Marion Steinfels and those at Feeding the Gulf Coast who have been coordinating with her to get this off the ground. All that my colleagues have said by way of this pandemic needs to, of course, be adhered to. We are nowhere near the end of this. Even the persons who are in charge of this effort on a national level are now in quarantine themselves. So we need to be ever more mindful and vigilant. Wear your mask, stay 6 feet away. But you won't have to worry about doing that with me because I'm going to do it for myself. And I'm seeing greater adherence at some of our restaurants, but there's still some who aren't following good common sense guidelines. And so as we open up, I'm hoping that we'll open up with common sense, and no one can force you to do anything. If you don't feel safe, if you walk in a place and it doesn't feel like that's the environment you need to be in, do an about face, get in your car and go home. Don't worry about it. And so there are a lot of great projects going on in the district. I rode around some this weekend looking at the amenity improvements there in the Avenue and in Plateau and in Maysville. I'm just amazed that through all of the turbulence that we've experienced, there are so many great projects that continue. And that's because of our hardworking city staff. It's because of the ingenuity of those who work for us. And my hat goes off to all of them who continue to work hard day in and day out, our first responders, police and fire, to our sanitation and public works employees who do an outstanding job day in and day out. Thank you for all that you do to keep this city running. That concludes my announcements. Any announcements from the administration?
They've gone.
They've gone. Well,
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
It's been motioned and properly second.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
Oh,
happy birthday, CJ.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday, CJ.
Yes, happy birthday, CJ.
Thank you.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Any discussion on the motion? There's been motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
None.
Then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Great day, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.